Hi friends, welcome to part 2 of me reading through my Goodreads Choice Awards TBR. I'm going to start this vlog with Daydream. As you saw at the end of part 1, I used a random picker to find that, and I'm actually going to use that same picker to find my next read for what I hope is the audio edition of that. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I have Beautyland, and I only have it for the next 8 days, so maybe I'll start that, and we'll see what the vibes are. I don't even know what this book is about. I say that, like, just not in my memory. It says, at the moment when Voyager 1 is launched into space carrying its famous golden record, a baby of unusual perception is born to a single mother in Philadelphia. Adina Giorno is tiny and jaundiced, but she reaches for warmth and light. As a child, she recognizes that she is different. She possesses knowledge of a faraway planet. The arrival of a fax machine enables her to contact her extraterrestrial relatives, beings who have sent her to report on the oddities of Earthlings for years. As she moves through the world and makes life for herself among humans, she dispatches transmissions on the terrors and surprising joys of their existence. Then, at a precarious moment, a beloved friend urges Adina to share her messages with the world. Is there a chance she's not alone? Hell yeah, aliens! I'm into this. Okay, and this audiobook's only 9 hours, which means I could listen to this probably today and tomorrow at work and be done with it. So that's what we're going to do. So Beautyland's going to be our audiobook. Daydream's going to be our after work, evening couch time book. I'm so excited. I will update you guys tonight with how my reading's going. Good afternoon. I'm home from work. I have just completed the first section of Beautyland. I'm not really sure what to call it because if you look at it on Libby, girl, stop. I don't know if you can see that. The glare is so bad, but it's in these like section breakdowns and they're hours long. So the first section was Stellar Nebula, and that was 2 hours and 28 minutes. This next section, Massive Star, goes from 2 hours and 28 minutes to 3 hours and 55 minutes. And then Red Supergiant starts at 3 hours and 55 minutes, and so on and so forth. The whole audiobook is only, I think, 8.5, 9 hours, so it's not long. But because it's broken up into these sections and our narrator's storytelling it's fairly succinct, but it just keeps going and going and going through the section. Like, I don't feel any pauses, really, and I'd be interested to see what this looks like in physical form in the book. But it just feels like we are in these vignettes of things that are happening to her that will have to be 5 to 10 pages long. Then there's a break, and then it's the next vignette, 5 to 10 pages long, is the vibe I'm getting from the audio. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel being in the mind of a child in an adult sci-fi story, but it's working. It's working really well. I feel like she has a distinct voice. There are moments where it brings in the fact that she is definitely not human mentally for her. But it's making me question, like, is she actually from another planet? Or is this just the weird feelings we all had as kids, in childhood of, like, I feel different. Even though for a lot of it, you're not different. It's just that you don't know how to be a human yet. So I'm interested to see if by the end we're in a plot twist of, like, oh, she was human all along. Girlhood's just weird because it is. But yeah, I'm having a good time with it so far. I don't really know what else to really share because I don't want to spoil any of the content, but I'm liking the setup so far. I'm liking the vibe. Her mother is very interesting, and watching her realize that she knows, like, her mother's moods and things and is kind of cued by the set of her shoulders and how long it takes her to get out of the car and come into the house from the time she comes home from work, and little things like that I was like, oh, I knew that too as a kid. Like, they just are starting to, like, kind of click for me of, like, oh, this is an informed human experience. Has been really interesting. There have been several men in and out of her mom's life, but, like, not so much hers, which is also an interesting take. I like that. But I don't know, it's interesting watching her. I keep saying interesting, but I don't know what another word for it. You know what it is? It's subtle but dynamic. That's, I think, how I would like to describe it. Because she's approaching these things that happen. Some of them are small, right? Like, but have massive consequences, like dealing with popular girls at school. In the grand scheme of your life, it does not matter, but it has such a big impact on you as a child. and on your day-to-day life, and it makes your life feel so big or so small off these little things that are happening. Or like her running around with some of like the neighborhood boys and like they've befriended her, and her trying to figure out like what this means for her, and her discovering TV because her mom doesn't really let her watch TV at home. The attitudes of adults and how different they are, but yet they're the same. It's dynamic but subtle. So far, nothing has been too big, but big moments have happened. And I like that the author's take on it is from such a scientific approach, because this little girl is supposed to be an alien trapped in a human body. So I'm liking the vibe so far. I am liking the vibe so far. So I'm going to take a break from this now. I'm going to go take my dog for a WALK. She's sitting right here, so I don't want to, get her too excited yet, because I need to do 1 to 2 more things before we go do that. And then I'm going to start Daydream. And I think what I'm going to do, because I have some other tasks I need to get done tonight, is just read the first 100 pages and see how I feel. And so I will come and update you. That's 9 chapters, because I already put my bookmark in of where I'm going to stop at the chapter 10 marker, because that's technically page 99. But I'm a person who does not stop mid-chapter unless it's a chapter break. So all that to say, I have started one book. I will start this one when I get back, and I'll let you know how it goes. Hi, it is Saturday, and I basically haven't read anything since we talked. That's a little bit of a lie. I've read the first 20 pages of Daydream, so I'm halfway through Henry's first chapter, which is literally chapter 2, and I'm uninterested, but not because of the content of the book. It's not the book's fault. The vibes of the beginning of the book were actually very good. It's that I don't want to read contemporary romance right now, so I'm going to put it down, and I will pick it back up when I am ready for a contemporary romance. So for Beautyland, I've been listening to that on Libby while I've been at work, and I didn't get to really listen on Friday the way I wanted to, because we had like a Thanksgiving lunch situation happening, and that meant that some of our upper management came into town, so like you have to be engaged, AirPods out, things like that. So I was not able to listen while I was doing my work. I kept having to like stop and have conversations and whatever, which is fine. But I have noticed that I really only want to dive into Beautyland when I am in work mode. I don't know if it's just because I'm accessing the science-y part of my brain, working on technology things, that makes it conducive to listening to that. But when I'm just sitting here, even like trying to like knit and listen, I just can't lock in the same way, and I find myself not appreciating the content of the story in the same way, which is not fair to the book. So I have resigned myself to only listening while I'm working, or if I get into that inspirational mode where it feels right, then I'll listen to it while I'm at home. But we're kind of pausing there. So that brings me to this stack next to me, actually. So the lovely people at Forever Publishing accepted me into their influencer program like a month or 2 ago. And every month they send out these emails and they're like, hey guys, these are the books you guys can request physical copies of. If we have enough of them, we'll send it to you, yada yada. I have been interested in Trials of the Sun Queen and this series in general, which I don't know the series name. I should have looked that up. I think it actually might be called the Sun Queen series. Nope, it's called Artifacts of Oranos. And there's 4 books in the series. The 4th book comes out Tuesday, I think. And I actually have it here because in that sign up, I could sign up to get this book and the first book were my options. In there, like one was like, this is a guaranteed, we'll send it to you. And then if we have it, and then if not, we'll result to your backup. And they'll send you both if they have copies of them. And so I requested these. And you're like, Rebecca, why would you request a 4th book? And I'm like, well, number one, why not? But I also just knew I was going to like this series. Then we have books 2 and 3, which I got on Book Outlet for $5 each. So I have the entire series for $10. That just seems like a appropriate economic choice to me, so I did it. Again, not having read anything from this author before, but a few months ago, the lovely Hannah-Lisa Lore invited me onto a live stream on her channel that was meant to celebrate the name of this readathon is escaping me. I really should look up the things I'm going to talk about before I turn this camera on, but this is authenticity here, okay? This is me in the moment. This is what it's like to be my friend and sit on the couch with me. This is how my conversations go half the time. It's me pausing to look up the thing that I'm interested in talking to you about, to give you all of the details, not just the ones that are on the surface of my mind. The Diverse Baseline Challenge, which was created by the Bookish Millennial and the Margarita S on Instagram. I will link their information below, along with the Storygraph Challenge. It's a year-long challenge, and so obviously it's ending soon, being December. I didn't know this existed until she invited me onto her live stream. I think that was in October. But on that live stream, somebody was talking about this series, and as they were explaining it to me, I was like, oh, this is extremely my shit. Because when it comes to fantasy, I like 2 things. I like a lot of things, but 2 things that will like automatically get me to pick up your book and try it, sight unseen. If it has games, and or like a challenge situation, or if it's set at a school, that'll get me. And not the series you're thinking of, okay? Like, yeah, it had its time or whatever, but no. I'm thinking more like Bonds of Brass by Emily Skrutsky, or, what's the other school one that I really liked that was set at fantasy? Oh, R.F. Kuang, The Poppy War. Freaking love The Poppy War. So this one is about a girl who is imprisoned because of something that happened with the Aurora King. I don't know what these different kingdoms mean yet and like their purposes, because I'm literally like 3 pages into this, but she's enduring a 12 long years of torment under the Aurora King's rule. Her only desire is to escape and pay him back for every moment of misery she's endured. When I opened this book, it was her complaining about somebody stealing her soap, and she's like in a prison, and her sister's there, and so is her brother. So when a surprise release finds her in the hands of the rival Sun King, Lore is thrust into the spotlight as she competes against 9 other tributes for the role of queen. If she wins his heart, she'll earn her freedom and finally get her revenge. But Lore doesn't belong in the Sun Queen trials. Not only does she not understand why she was freed, she isn't a citizen of the Sun King's court. The other tributes resent her presence and will stop at nothing to ensure Lore is removed from the competition permanently. Now, Lore must win, but if she loses, she dies. Or worse, she'll be returned to the evil and now vengeful Aurora King, which is wild. And I also think the kings are related. I don't know if the Sun King and the Aurora King are brothers or like father-son, but I know they're related somehow. So this just sounds like lots of stakes, like it's going to be a good time. I just finished the Games Gods play a few days ago, and I absolutely loved that. And seeing all the trials of that and the politics that went around, you know, the gods and their dealings. I also really enjoyed 5 Broken Blades, which I read maybe like 2 weeks ago at this point. And so it just feels right to start this. So that's what we're going to do this evening. I'm going to eat my Chipotle because, of course, I went to Chipotle because why not? This is a heavy bag. I know they hooked me up with this bowl. So I'm excited to eat that. I've been watching old seasons of MasterChef just to like have on in the background. So I'm going to let myself do that for a little bit, and then I will pick up this book and let you know how it goes. I'm very excited to get into this. Hi, happy Monday. I have spent the evening reading Beautyland, and I finished it. And I really regret not buying a physical copy of that book when I was acquiring all the books for this challenge, because wow. That was so good. So good. I would not be shocked if that won the sci-fi category, because my God, I was not expecting to be that blown away by it in the second half. I think whenever a sci-fi book especially has a premise like the one this had, where it's like an alien who has been birthed at the same time a baby has been birthed, and you're following her throughout her life and her feeling just so different and othered the whole time. And it also has you questioning, like, is this girl actually an alien or not? Because it's speculative enough that you're like, maybe, but then it's also so mundane, but still somehow so profound that after what I would guess is probably 100 pages, you're wondering, like, how long can they keep this up? But, oh my god, I can't even... It's so good. So, Marie-Helene Bettino is the author, and the thing I think she did incredibly well with this story is that she focused in so heavily on the human experiences that our main character was having, and the way that we can feel othered. And some of them was less about feeling othered, and some of it was just the mundanity of adulthood. I also think that choosing to follow this character through her entire lifespan was a crucial decision, and she made the right one. I think if we had stopped after this character hit high school or college and had kind of ended there, it would have felt... I don't know if it would have felt incomplete or if it would have felt like sections dragged on because we spent too much time in different areas, but I think we spent an appropriate amount of time through each life stage. And I think in a setting like this, you would think the middle school and high school years would be the easiest to write, and maybe they were. But to me, it's the adulthood part that really carried this story in a way that I don't think we often stop to look at our lives. And because once you're out of, because when you're in school or school age, there are so many things that are happening to you that are so impactful but expected, not by you as the individual growing, but by the people around you, that when you have certain reactions, it's just kind of allowed or encouraged, or things that feel so big but are really so small happen. But in adulthood, like, some of the things that she tackled were so devastating, but just so daily and mundane that I don't know if I have the words for it. I loved this so much. I also really liked the age range this character was in. She was in early adulthood around the time of 9/11. And then that is I don't want to call it a plot point because it's not so much the focus of that section of the book, but it's used as a plot device, I should say, to discuss emotions and the human condition. This quote I pulled from the book actually is from the 9/11 chapters, I'll call them. It was really just like maybe 2 or 3 chapters, I would guess, but I was listening to this on audio the whole time. But there's a point where she's talking about how different people are reacting, like, post 9/11. And how, like, she specifically talked about, like, the community aspects. Like, she's walking down the street the day it's happened. Her boss is, like, gets everybody out of the building. And they weren't in the towers, but they were just downtown working, and so he gets them out of the building, and he says, don't take the subway, don't take the trains, like, walk home. Like, I know it's going to be long, but, like, I feel like that's safer, like, walk home. And so they all start heading in the directions of their home, and her and another coworker are walking together for a while, and they hit this one area, and this woman's like, where are they? And she's like, where's who? Like, did you lose your family? Like, thinking something of that nature happens, but she's talking about the Twin Towers being gone. And she talks about how after that, and they're kind of walking around and seeing just the looks on everyone's faces, and how there's just this general feeling of fear and being dejected and just not knowing what the hell's going on, because none of us knew what the hell was going on when that happened. And the street vendors offering, like, free bottles of water and food to everyone, and restaurant owners kind of doing the same thing, and just basically immediately reverting to our most basic needs as human beings of needing food, water, and support. And she talks about how afterwards there were certain acts that people were doing in the beginning that felt super comforting that then just became cyclical and almost lost their meaning. And so here's one thing she said. She said, I love you is a can of soda that comes free with every meal, yet every day humans suffer from the lack of hearing it. And hearing those words from someone who is meant to be an alien living a human experience in a time that truly rocked humanity, specifically if you were in the United States, and more specifically if you were on the East Coast or in New York at the time of this happening. And the sense of community that was very real for a time, and then it becoming this faux sense of community, and the platitudes that we were saying to each other that on the first hearing felt so important and so comforting to then be completely meaningless. But the thing behind the platitude being what we actually needed, but never getting it, and almost just never feeling fed by it. Ugh. It's so good. If you get the chance to read this, I highly encourage anyone who can to pick up the audio. But I would pick up physically or ebook or something in tandem, because you're going to want to highlight and you're going to want to make notes. And I really wish I had that opportunity. So we'll be getting a physical copy of this book at some point. Probably to reread for sure. I know I have highlights and notes I would love to make, but I also would just love to be able to keep it. This is the kind of book that you want to make little notes in and then also give it to your friends and see what notes they give it back to you in. I've never done that where I've like written in a book and then give it to somebody else and kind of seen their notes, but I would absolutely love that. I would probably have to do it on like Post-its or something, because I think it would actually drive me crazy to see all of our notes in a margin and basically not be able to read the words anymore. But I think it would be great to be able to see someone else's thoughts in that way, because I don't know about you, but like there are times where I have super deep conversations with my friends or we talk about something that's profound, but for the most part it is quiet, mundane community, and a lot of times that's needed. But there's something about being able to see the inner workings of someone's brain when they're sitting alone in the way that you get when you're writing notes in a book that shows you so much about the people you surround yourselves with, and I just think that would be nice to see sometimes. So anyway, had the best time with that. So now what I'm going to do is hopefully, I don't know if I'm going to finish The Veiled Kingdom, but I'm halfway through right now. And this is the lighthearted fun time I needed. I tried to start Trials of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Chuli, but that one started on such a serious note, and it's important, and I wanted to value that, so I put it down because I was not in the mood for that. But I'm very much in the mood for Veiled Kingdom. It is moving very quickly, and I will say, for the setup of a romantasy book, this is not giving a lot of content. This book's only 350 pages, I think. But it's setting it up enough that I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to have to read The Hunted Heir right after. I'm having so much fun with this. I'm so bad at remembering main character names. Naira is the FMC. That's not her actual name. We don't know her real name yet. That was her mother's name, and she uses it as she's kind of in hiding right now. But her, and I assume this guy's name is Dacre. It's Dacre. And I if that's not the word acre with a D on front of it, I don't know how else we're pronouncing this kid's name. But the tension between the two of them, I don't know if I ever gave you a synopsis of this. So Naira was, or technically is still, she's the heir to a kingdom. Her father is the king, and he is a greedy kind of evil king. And she has been living on the streets for a year after the rebellion raided the palace. She was already pretty much under lock and key because she's a fae with no magic, which is unheard of. And every heir to the throne is supposed to have magic, and that's part of how they rule. And because she has no magic, her father just essentially found her to be useless. Her mother passed away giving birth to her sibling, who also did not make it, it seems. And then her dad got remarried days later, because his whole reason for being married was to create an heir, is the way he's looking at it. And she can't stand her father, so she gets out as soon as she can. And she knows the King's Guard have been hunting for her, and she gets picked up actually and thrown into the prison of the palace. But it's for theft, and no one recognizes her as the princess, which is so wild to me. But I guess her dad kept her under wraps so much that even some of the guards didn't recognize her if they weren't the inner circle guards, if you were, that weren't immediately around the family. And Dacre is the son of you could call him the king of the rebellion. His dad is leading the rebellion. Dacre was in the palace for that raid. He saw Naira at one point, and she never saw him. So, like, but, like, when their paths eventually cross in the book, he's like, I've seen you before. He's like, you were in the palace the night of the raid. And so she is she's in the rebellion now, honestly, as a survival mechanism for other things that have happened, but he doesn't trust her. He claims he can't stand her, but this man is obsessed with her. Like, he gets upset when she trains with another guy in their camp. Like, just goes full meathead about it. So, it's just, like, fun banter. There's definitely tension. There are definitely stakes, but, like, nothing's too serious for us as the reader right now. And I have a feeling they won't really get very serious until the last 100 pages, and then we'll dive into Haunted Air after that. I don't know if I will immediately read it, but that's the plan, is to catch up on the series, because the third book either just came out or is about to come out. And so I would like to... I'm having a fun time. I like a medium stakes kind of political fantasy, but it's not taking itself too seriously, and it's very clearly romance forward. Like, this book is, the plot points are moving off the tension between these characters, so when they eventually get together, I'm sure shit's gonna get explosive, and I'm excited to see what happens. So just wanted to give you guys a reading update, tell you what's been going on. So I'm gonna get to reading, and then we'll hopefully update you tomorrow telling you I finished this book. That's the hope. Hello, how's it going? If you are in America, happy Thanksgiving Eve. I have been the worst about updating you on what I'm reading this week, and I make no apologies. Life has just been a little busy, and with the holiday happening, a lot was happening at work on the front half of the week, and now I have finished both the books I was reading, and I didn't tell you a single thing. So I finished The Veiled Kingdom last night, and I was breezing through it. I was having a good time. I was talking to M from the Desk of on Instagram. I will link her below, because she has been promoting this series like crazy for like the last year, it feels like. And she's been recommending it to me, because every time she posts a reel, I'm like, oh, that sounds real steamy. And she's like, I think you would like it. You should try this. And so I read it, and I had a good giggly time with it, but I would not call it like a really good intro to a romantasy series. But the way it left off, I'm going to read the second book. I think it's one of those series that it doesn't take itself too seriously, and so I think that's part of the reason why it is so popular, is that it is incredibly accessible. If you don't read a lot of fantasy or romantasy, it is not hard to get into, understand what's going on. Everything is very cut and dry, in your face, and even the potential secrets and twists are very obvious. And as someone who's trying to get back into the genre, I really appreciated that. But if you are a seasoned reader of it, I don't know that I would recommend it. Or I would say go into it when you need like some brain off time, but you still want to read a fantasy or romantasy, if that makes sense. And none of that's like a dig to this book. I don't want it to sound like I'm just like ragging on it. I just want to be very clear about what the book is and isn't. So I'm going to give it 3 stars. I'll also say it's like unbelievably horny. For those of you who were a fan of just how horny Violet was in The Fourth Wing, this is for you. Naira is also just dangerously horny. Honestly, I'm just like, girl, if you could just get it together. Get it together. The chemistry also, I don't know that was super believable between our love interests. The guy's name I think is Dacre. Maybe it's Dacker. I don't know. I wasn't listening to an audio of this. I don't even know if there is an audio of this, but he doesn't really trust her. There's a lot of push and pull, but there's also no real development between the two of them, because he does not trust her and tries to spend as little time around her as possible. But at the same time, he's the catalyst for moving her plot forward. So it's weird. I can definitely see where this was probably written in to move us to book 2. And I know what you're thinking is like, well, isn't that what all book 1s of fantasies are? And I would say no, because as we saw in the last video where I read 2 fantasy books that were first in their series, they each had a very specific plot point that they wanted to complete by the end of the book, and they did that. while then also setting you up for the rest of the series. This is not that. This is intended as a cliffhanger, and there was a cliffhanger moment that makes you want to run to the store or run to your Kindle and immediately grab book 2. In the moment, I did want to immediately grab book 2, but I told myself not to, and I made myself go to bed because it was like 11:15, and I still had to work today, and technically I'm still working today. And so I was like, I'm going to go to sleep, and then tomorrow I will see how I feel and whether I start that or if I pick up Trials of the Sun Queen and go from there. I have this physically, but I read this entirely on my Kindle and listened to it on Audible. It's an Audible exclusive, which is the only reason I got it from there. I don't like getting my audiobooks from Audible when there are other options that support small businesses, so those are my 2 cents there. But anyway, it's an Audible exclusive, and I wanted to read it while I was working, and the only way to do that was audiobook, so grabbed the audio. I mentioned before that the beginning of this was kind of dark. We're in a prison in another kingdom with our main character, Lore, and she's having a rough time in there, okay? And even though I feel like a lot doesn't happen on page, Nisha Tooley did a really good job of making us feel like we were standing in the prison with her, and just the stakes, and even feeling her past traumas that happened in the prison that we did not see on page necessarily. It just gave me such an aggressive ick, but not so much I wanted to put the book down, just that like I felt like I was standing there with Lore. So I will say that part is really good, but I would check the content warnings if that's triggering for you. I will say I feel like that initial dread part was over really early. It felt like a long time when I was reading it in my Kindle, but I opened to chapter 5, which is page 43, and at that part, she's out of the prison and on to the next plot point. So if you can make it through the first 43 pages of that feeling of dread, you're in for a good time. The trials in this were fun. They weren't as prominent as the games gods play, but I liked that because this is a 4-book series that is officially completed. Actually, book 4 came out yesterday. And it's setting up a lot, but it's not denying its plot points of this book. So this is another one where the initial plot of the story, not initial plot. Yeah, actually, the initial plot and the reason you think you're here is, as the title says, the trial of the Sun Queen, in which these women are selected to do these trials, and by the end of it, one of them will be the Sun Queen, and the Fae King of, I don't remember the name of the country they're in, but he's the Sun King. They'll get married, and then he will come into his full Fae powers, but those powers will also be transferred into his wife, the Queen, who will, if she's not Fae, become Fae, and if she is Fae, will become a powerful High Fae, Royal Fae, whatever the anointed kings and queens of the Faedoms get. So that's what we're competing for. Our main character, Lore, like I said, was in prison for crimes she didn't commit because she was thrown in there at the age of 12. She's the youngest child of 3. And we don't know why she's in there for 98% of the book. And honestly, even in the last 2%, when we find out, I guess, the threat of why she would be in there, like the real reason still isn't really out. But it gives you enough to wet your whistle and make you want to pick up book 2. And I really want to pick up book 2. I really, really want to. But I think I'm going to make myself hold off and stick to the TBR of this video, which is crazy. I know. But I am going to do it. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm about to abandon my TBR come December 1st. And I will explain more about that in a second. I gave Trials of the Sun Queen 4.5 stars. Immaculate. Excellent. I will be completing that series. That is the first time in a long time where the first book in the series was so good that I immediately wanted to continue on the series. I've read a lot. I shouldn't say I've read a lot. I've read a decent amount of fantasy novels in the last 2 years, and maybe 2 or 3 of them made me want to keep going with the series after the first one on their own. The other ones where I kept going were because I was reading them not because they were popular, but because they were popular, my friends in my book club had read them, and they were like, oh, we want you to read them and, like, join in the conversation with us so that when we're talking about them and what we're reading, like, you'll know what's going on. And so I read them because of that and for the camaraderie of the group, if you will, but I would not have moved on from book 1 to book 2 on any of them, actually, without them. So it was nice to have that feeling where I was like, oh, no, I really want to read this and I really want to push this series on them. So I probably will do that. So if you're reading this and you're in my book club, love you, you're going to be forced to read this because it's so good. So now I need to figure out what I'm reading next. And honestly, I'm struggling a little bit, if only because I am a mood reader and I have not been allowed to fully mood read in 2.5 weeks because of this Goodreads challenge that I'm doing. And I'm not mad about it. It's just that my brain is like, maybe we should mood read just a little bit. Maybe we should. And so I think what I'm going to do to make that possible for myself is another wheel. And I'm going to allow myself to select the titles that go in that wheel, and we'll go from there. So one of the first ones is going to be Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors, because I've wanted to read it since the book came out, but I watched Gabby's most recent reading vlog the other day, and she read it, and her reaction to this book made me immediately want to pick it up. But I was in the middle of those fantasy books, and I just couldn't do it, so that's how that goes. Let's see. I'm also going to put Margot's Got Money Troubles on here, mostly because I haven't read anything from the fiction section yet, and that's upsetting to me. I'm also going to put Martyr in here, also in the fiction section. Let's see. What else could I put in here? Ooh, okay. I think that's it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 books. Okay, so we have Blue Sisters, Margot's Got Money Troubles, Martyr, Bury Your Gaze, Blood of Hercules, and The God of the Woods. And we're going to spin and see our results, which are done. And the winner is Blood of Hercules. Okay, so we are sticking with the fantasy theme. I love this for me, honestly. And I just got the audio, and I also... Pro tip, if you are a Kindle Unlimited user, save 5 to 8 of your Kindle Unlimited spots for books that pop up on there that either aren't normally on there or that are indies that have just got picked up by publishers to just stow away there, even if you're not quite ready to read them. I did this with Blood of Hercules and Phantasma, actually. I saw them popping off like 3-ish months ago. I knew they both got picked up by publishers. I knew they both were getting physical releases, and that was going to be excited. Like, physical releases by the publisher, I should say. And so I was like, man, this is super exciting. I wasn't sure if they were going to get pulled from KU or not, because sometimes the author will choose to retain their ebook rights so they can do whatever they want by keeping them on Kindle Unlimited or by taking them off and doing whatever. And so I wasn't sure. Jasmine Moss did not keep Blood of Hercules on there. And it might not have been a choice. I don't know. But it was not on Kindle Unlimited anymore as of like today or yesterday. So I'm so glad that I snagged it like 2 weeks ago and it's been sitting in my KU, because once you have it borrowed, you get to keep it until you check it back in and relieve it of that spot, even if that book is no longer on KU. That also entitles you to the discounted option on Audible if you need the audiobook. I did this with Butcher and Blackbird too last year, or earlier this year actually. I think is when I read it in February maybe. I had grabbed it in like November or December. I was like, oh, I want to read this soon. It was on KU still. It was technically no longer indie, but Zando hadn't put out their edition yet, I don't think. And so it was still on there. So I grabbed it on KU, and then 2 weeks later it got pulled. And then I started reading it, and then everyone was raving about the audio. And so then I got the audio for like $6 or whatever the discounted rate is for getting an audio copy of the Kindle edition that you're reading. And so I got to have that experience, which is great. Unfortunately, that the male narrator from that is apparently a colossal piece of shit. So there's that. Would not recommend going back and listening to that audio now, but just for you to know about how these things work, so you can game the system a little bit if you want to. And it doesn't hurt the author. They still get paid per page from their Kindle Unlimited time, so it's not like they're losing out. So why not? You know? So I tend to do that. Like half my Kindle Unlimited spots are often taken by either trad published things that like get temporarily put on there, because sometimes, especially in summer, like blockbuster titles will be on Kindle Unlimited for like limited time just so they can get to more readers. And I love that because sometimes you want to read them, but then there's like an 18-week hold at the library or something and you don't want to deal with that. So it's nice to be able to have that option. So I'm going to go start the audio of Blood of Hercules and maybe also read along on my Kindle, and I will update you, let's say maybe around the 25% mark, with a general synopsis along with my feelings. Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. It is Thursday, the 28th, I think. It is the 28th, which means it's Thanksgiving here in the United States. For me, it's just Thursday and a day off. I am around the 25% mark of Blood of Hercules, so here I am to give you a general synopsis, the vibe so far, and how I'm feeling. So the synopsis says, I'm just a girl and it turns out I'm Hercules. I'm struggling to survive in a Titan-infested world with Spartans, immortals from 12 royal families who have godlike powers and obscene wealth rule over all. A shy, stammering foster child with nothing, I keep my head down, cover my scars, and focus on excelling in school. At least I try to. Then it happens. My blood test reveals I'm part of the elite. I'm one of them, a Spartan. Forced to attend the Spartan War Academy, I undergo the most harrowing test of all time to see if I have what it takes to be an immortal. There's just a few problems. Achilles and Patro, as in Patroclus, are my scary mentors. Charon, the ferryman of death, and Augustus, the son of war, are my terrifying professors. Also, I'm pretty sure either someone's stalking me everywhere I go, or my sanity's slipping. I have a bad feeling both are true. This book is wild, honestly. So our main character is Alexis. When we first meet her, she's a 10-year-old girl living with abusive foster parents. There is abuse on page. And honestly, that first 25% was rough. That's 128 pages, brings me to chapter 8, which says it's at 27% mark. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. And then I just told myself, I said, get to her figuring out that she's a part of the elite and see if the vibes change. And they have a little bit. The abuse is over. The foster parents are gone. I don't know what happened to her foster brother. He's kind of delivered onto the doorstep a few weeks after. I say it's a few weeks. It's maybe a few months, timeline-wise. We meet her, then it happens. But they have a rough living. They are living in this trailer with their parents. They're starving. Some of that is not neglect, actually, though. Just it's the circumstances of the world. But also, the parents are awful, and some things happen. The parents go away, and then they are homeless. And it's just them getting bullied at school and just trying to make it day to day until this test happens, which happens for all students at age of 19. And part of the test is a blood test, and hers goes up in smoke, which is a signal that there is elite blood there, whether taken or actually a part of you. Yeah, the main character has a very distinct voice. It does that thing that a lot of fantasy books, and really, even I've seen this in dark romantic comedies and stuff, where the main character you're following has that kind of sarcastic inner voice, and it can either be just what you're looking for, or it can be kind of grating. And initially it was a little grating, and I was like, this character has strong voice. I just don't know that I like it. But so far, I'm warming up to it. The audio is helping. But so far, no one's really likable. And I don't generally need people to be likable. But it's nice when they are. And so far, no one's likable. And I just don't know. It's fine. I think the other thing that it makes this one tough is I just read The Games Gods Play, and so we were already set in, the time of Greek gods, and the version of the Greek gods in that book are kind of different, a lot different than what's happening in this one. And as a person who does not have a robust knowledge of, I guess, what they're supposed to be, based on, I don't know, historical works or whatever, I just don't. I don't know. The vibes are fine. I'm listening and I'm having an okay time. I'm going to give it, I think, until the 50-ish% mark and see what happens. If I'm really invested, then we'll keep going. And then if not, I will put it down. And that seems like a lot, but it was 128 pages to get to chapter 8. The chapters are long. That's the other thing. Is the chapters are kind of long, and so I feel like you have to get through 2 or 3 of them to really see the full picture of different plot lines that are developing. And if some of those plot lines are ones I would like to be committed to, I would like to continue on. So we're going to give it a listen, see what's up. I'm going to enjoy some coffee. I think I might start decluttering my closet. I have a lot of things that I would like to donate to a couple of the local donation places just to clear out some space for myself, but also because I don't use or need it and other people could. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to listen, drink this coffee, and then I will go start decluttering. I'm only 8% more in, and I'm starting to feel better about the story, but I'm also listening to the audio while I'm following along on my Kindle, and Teddy fucking Hamilton is the voice of Karen. So obviously I'm going to be finishing this book now. Who cares if it's good or not? I'm listening to Teddy Hamilton. Okay. Hello, happy Black Friday. I finished The Blood of Hercules yesterday. I read the entire thing yesterday, and I'm glad I stuck it out. I really enjoyed the second half of that book. I don't know if I would have made it without the audio, if I'm being very honest, because some of it was just really repetitive, and it was always going to be just because of the way the school is set up. Once she passed the test and like gets sent into Titan country, if you will, with the Greek gods and everything, and they're in Greece, and they have her going through these like trials on a mountain and stuff, and so that stuff is going to be repetitive. So that was always going to be monotonous because mountain trials of you doing the same thing are going to be that way. But I really liked all of the Greek gods we got to encounter, and I still stand by the fact that most of them are not likable, but there's a lot of like who did this to you energy happening throughout, and in the end she ends up in a situation with two of them that you can see coming for quite a while, but you don't know like the finer details of it, and the finer details getting revealed was honestly kind of diabolical. And like watching her piece together shit in her brain as things are happening publicly, crazy. Also finding out who her parents were, crazy. Now again, I have shared, I don't know much about the Greek gods beyond like Zeus being the one with lightning and Hades being from hell. Like that's just never been my ministry. But I've been dabbling in books that have been loosely based on the nature of those stories, and so it might have been obvious, given the fact that she's from the bloodline of that she is Hercules, and as the title says, the blood of Hercules, of like who her parents would be, but it was not obvious to me. So it was fun for me to experience that. And I'll say, just as someone who's been reading a lot of the romantasy books in the Goodreads choice category, I can see why these are popular. They're fun for the most part. They are really easy to dive into and just be along for the ride as these different trials and tribulations are happening to the main characters. Is the writing like perfect? No. And in some of it, I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice to make some of their lines like TikTok quotable, which is frustrating. This one in particular, I really hated the use of, some people will call it TikTok slang, some people will call it AAV. I call it what you want. I just don't call it in on the pages. Don't use it. And it's not because I don't think you should use that at all in books. I think there's a time and a place. I think the reason I didn't like it in this instance is that for the most part, she was creating a world that was familiar enough to us. Like the initial setting is Montana, right? Like we know where Montana is. But the time period and the fact that it was kind of like post-apocalyptic meant that she could do whatever she wanted. And so for her to bring in that language into it in some instances felt like she was hindering herself. Because now if someone reads this like 25 years from now, they're going to be like, people don't say that anymore. And we have that about other things, like historical work. But I think there's a difference between using this, whatever the present day slang is when you're writing it, as a way to bring whoever's reading it into your time period and for them to really understand like the vibes of what's going on, and to just do it for like cheap laughs. And this felt like cheap laughs because especially in the particular instances that it would be in, it would be Alexis, our main character, and Nyx, her invisible snake no one else can see, talking to each other, and then Nyx would be like thirsting after Karen or Augustus, who are the two men that you're like, oh, she's probably gonna get with one of these guys. And like the fact that that snake said the words "dicked down" immediately lost a star for me. Immediately. And then like Alexa says, I can't believe I've lost the plot or whatever. And I'm like, girl, just why? And what's frustrating is the rest of the dialogue and the just writing in general was done fairly well and in such a way that I was like, oh, you could have told me this came out 10 years ago, or you could tell me this comes out 5 years from now and I'd believe you, until those instances of language were used. And that just really was frustrating for me. And it kind of took me out of the story a little bit. And it was always at moments where I felt like she was really trying to tell us something. So I was like, why are we leaning on this like a crutch that you don't need? So I didn't love that, but I loved the story in general. I really enjoyed the way that some of the side characters from like the school were brought in. Not the high school she's at in the very beginning, but I forget what they called it, but when you turn 19 and you pass the test and like do the thing, you go into the trials and whatever. It was like a small group of them. I think they started out with 10 and ended with like 5 or 6 of them by graduation. And I liked some of the guys that were in that. I felt really bad for what happened to some of them. Positively wild, but very much touch her and die was a very serious undertone of this book, even though it was not said very often. I take that back. It wasn't said very often in the beginning, and then in the latter half, I feel like it was said a lot, but not necessarily in those direct words, but close enough. Lots of male ego energy happening, so I can't wait for the second book. I will be excitingly looking forward to that. It doesn't come out until October 2025, which is 11 months from now. That's crazy. However, this series got picked up by Harlequin Trade Press, and I'm in their influencer group, The Hive, so I will be stocking NetGalley around April for that book to show up, because I have a feeling it will be in there in the spring, if not early summer, and I can't wait. I'm so ready to read it. I'm so ready. I hope that they have the audio, like an ALC available for an audio arc, because the cast was great. Teddy Hamilton was in it. That man literally came in at the right time and saved me, because I was very ready to stop reading. Who else was in this? Okay, Teddy Hamilton, and then Meg Sylvan was Alexis, and then any really female character that would come up. Teddy Hamilton was the voice of Karen, I think. I can't say it the correct way. It's like I can't. I feel like I'm hawking a paloogie, and I have not been able to pronounce it right. I've been trying. Can't do it. I don't know who Aiden Snow and Tristan Morris voiced in that. I know who the other character chapters were, but I just don't know which guy did which character, if that makes sense, because I'm not familiar with them as narrators. But I liked all of their voices, so I will be looking up their vocal acting history in the audiobook list and see what else is out there that I might be able to listen to and enjoy. So I think that's going to be the last book for this vlog. A 3 fantasy time. I love that. I'm excited. I don't know what this next one's going to be. Maybe this next vlog will be litfic and horror. On Sunday, I am doing a live stream with my friend Nicole, and we are going to be reading Dashing All the Way, which is Chelsea Curto's new Christmas novella that comes out on Sunday, December 1st, and Chelsea Curto is going to grace us with her presence on the live, and I'm so excited about it. But that's also going to kick off essentially Vlogmas for me. I'm not actually going to vlog on this channel, but what is going to happen is I'm going to read a holiday novella, whether it's Christmas or another holiday, every day through Christmas. And I'm going to put that on shorts and probably TikTok and Reels just to share across my platforms. But I think this would be a fun little way to get into the holiday spirit without a huge video commitment for me, because I will be working, and novellas are generally speaking 160 pages or less. So that should be easy enough for me to read through in an evening and then give you guys updates on how things are going. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to the Goodreads Choice Word vlog number 2. Number 3 coming at you next week. So until then.